So I'm going to record on the computer. So good morning, everybody. The two things that I wanted to cover today is one, to show you how to create and apply a favicon, the little icons that appear in the tabs of your browser. I started that last week, and the Favicon Generator I was not happy with. So I'm using a different one, and we'll get that to work. That shouldn't take us too long. The other thing that I wanted to show everybody how to do today is that to use a feature of forwarding that when you use, for example, a free service, a free hosting service, you don't get to use your own unique domain name. They provide one for you, but you cannot use yours. That's when it costs. So for example, you can see the one that I have right here, okay, that I've used for this class that I created using Mobirise. If you look at the top, the URL here, and you can't see it very clearly, but it says art196 spring 2021 .infinityfreeapp.com. That is the whole URL. That doesn't really roll off your tongue. However, if I go ahead and I put in here kmilleronline.com and I hit the return key, notice what pops up. It actually brings up this website. So that's a forwarding feature that I've used pretty successfully, so that what you'll do is you can buy your domain name from any number of hosting services, whether it be 000webhost.com. I use GoDaddy, and that costs between $10 and $15 a year. And then you use their forwarding feature to forward it to a free service, or maybe it's one that you've already used. So sometimes you'll have your own dedicated website, but you want to make sure that if people mistakenly put in a different domain name, that it still comes up to yours. So it can be linked to any number of can be used for any number of different ways. So the first one that I wanted to talk about was this one right here. And you can see that this is the one that I used, the page that I created for creating the contact, but you'll notice the little square icon up here. So how do you do that? Well, what you do is I'm going to go to my website here. So I'm going to go ahead, the one that I use for our class. So this would be kmart66.com. And if I go to Kirk's classes, and if you either go to the handouts page or weekly syllabi, it doesn't really matter. I'll go to handouts, and you go over to the left. You'll notice that I have a Favicon Generator link. Now, I've changed this from last week. So if you click on that, it will take you to this website here, Favicon Generator for real. Now, they do not charge, but they request a donation. So you don't have to pay if you want. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to select your Favicon image, okay? So to do that, you need to go to your favorite program, such as Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator, to create the little logo. And it needs to be about 196 by 196 pixels. So I'm going to go back out of here. Let's see. I'm going to go to File, Open. And I thought I already had it open. So, and I don't. So hold on here. I'm going to pause the recording for a minute and find it. So this is the one that I generated in Photoshop. Let me zoom in. Okay. So these are the recommended safe areas. If we go to image size, and this is my Photoshop file, but you need to save it as a JPEG, GIF, or PNG, typically. And you'll notice that it is 192 pixels by 192 pixels. A square format is recommended. It need only be 72 pixels per inch, and you're good to go. Because this is fundamentally a logo, what you need to do is to make sure that when you scale down to a teeny tiny 16 by 16 pixels, that it's still somewhat readable. That's the important thing. The next thing, now that my original is a Photoshop file, you need to go use the same procedures that we followed at the beginning of the semester and do file save as, or export for web legacy, or in a particular layer, make sure that you create your, go ahead and you can generate image assets that way. So once you have your image saved, then you're set to go. Now I can go back to here. Okay, I can go back to my Favicon generator once it's been generated, and I can go ahead and I can select the image. Now this is going to take me to my desktop to find that's where I saved it. So I'm going to go to Favicons. I should have it in here. So let me go to, I have list, but I got to make sure that it is, I'm going to go by name. There we go. So I can find it a little bit easier. So here's the one that I created for Favicons. So you can see the only ones that are showing up are ping images, or the case that if, that's what I've been saving it as lately. But you can also save them as JPEGs. So I'll go ahead and I'll open this one. Okay, and it's already started. And continue with this picture. And now what you need to do is you need to scroll through the page and you need to decide, if this is working for you. You'll notice that the first group of favicons that it shows for tabs is that if it's on a white background or if you use a dark theme, what is it going to look like? And then you'll see down here that favicons for iOS, using web clip, and this is what it's going to look like here. So I'm happy with that. Favicons that are used for Android Chrome, this is what it looks like right here. And then you can see for Windows Metro. Now, the default background color is this burnt orange, but if I would rather use a teal or another blue or something, I can do that. The teal is kind of nice. Then you can see for Mac OS Safari, okay, these are the 3 different states for pen tab focus, and then background. And again, you can change the background color here. So if you'd rather, for example, like a neutral gray for the background color, because it changes it to a black and white image, basically 2 color, and that's it. And then you can go ahead here and under your options, it says, and this is the one that I recommend, it says that I will place the Favicon files in my root folder. That's the one that I recommend. So once you've gone through all these different steps and decided, in all these different scenarios, how you want your Favicon to look, excuse me, you go ahead and you select generate the Favicon of your code. Okay. So now it goes through the process. So what you need to do now, 2 things. This is similar to when we were generating a slideshow with the WOW slider. they provide the code that you put in the head of the document. So this is what you need to copy and put in the head of the document. And then you need to download your Favicon package, okay? So this is a package, it's a folder that I'll show you now, right here. And it will come in as a, I don't know why it won't allow me to do that. There we go. Let me move this down. Okay, so it will come in as a compressed file that you need to uncompress or decompress. And then the folder, which I have here, Favicon Package, will have all of these images in here, as well as the ICO, which is this is the Favicon that's used for more generic purposes. Okay. You can see that this one is for Android Chrome. This is 192 pixels. Here's one that's 256 for Apple Touch icon, for all the different scenarios, you know, the different kinds of browsers, the different kinds of situations you might need it or want a Favicon, you have. So the next step is to take all of these items that are in this package, in addition to the code that you see here. In the code, we're going to put in the head of our document, and then in the rest of this, we're just going to place directly inside our root folder. So I'm going to set these aside now, and I'm going to come back here, and you can see that I've already done this. So I'm going to go back up here, and remember for our lessons that if you generated a page from a template, the head of the document is locked. So you need to either go back to the template and place this information, or you need to detach it from the template and then put it in there. I chose to detach it just for demonstration purposes. So now if I come up here, here's the opening tag for the head. I'm going to scroll down to the closing tag, and you can see this is the code that I placed in there. Okay, that was the code that was generated, that it said to copy and paste. So it gives us all these different options and scenarios. And then over here, if we look inside, let me go back up here. I got the wrong, there we go. So now you can see, and they're kind of dispersed here, there, and everywhere. But here's the image for Android Chrome. Here's for Apple Touch. And here's the browser config .xml that you need to include. Here's the Favicon 16 by 16 pixels. That's the smallest. Here's one for 32 by 32. And I even put the whole package in here just to be safe. So when you upload your files, when you publish them, using whatever service you decide to use, whatever hosting service, and in our case, we used Infinity Free. And then, let me go back here, and I'll go back again, and I'll, there we go. So I'm going to go back to here. Now, in order to see this, let me try this. I'm going to move this out of the way. And with this saved, I'm going to go ahead and go to File. And I'm going to go to Real-Time Preview. And it didn't save yet. So let's go back and save. Let's try again. Real-Time Preview. No. Okay. I'll try again. File, save as. I'm just going to save it as index.html again and replace it. Now let's see if I can preview it. Let's come back in here. Real time, there we go. So let's look at it in Google Chrome, for example, see what it looks like. It's going to take a second for it to open.
Respectful of that, you know, to try to answer the questions that they may have or the concerns. You know, everybody is
There we go. My apologies. Anyway, this is in Google Chrome, what it looks like. And you can see that just by doing a preview, you don't see the favicon up here. You see a little world symbol. So that's not enough. You can't just use preview. You do need to actually publish it. So, you know, that's what you're going to have to do. And then I can come back here. And now that I have published it, here we go. I'll pull this back down. Come on. There we go. So now that the same page, now that it has been published, you can see up here that the little bitty tiny favicon appears. So there you have it for favicons. It's kind of a nice little added touch to your website. I think it makes it look a little bit more finished, a little bit more professional. You look a little bit more established, you know, as a entity for the, you know, people who choose to go to your website or happen upon it. So any questions so far regarding favicons? That's pretty much it. So the Favicon generator that I have links to, I think is the one that I prefer. I don't know why I had the other one last week, but we're going to use this one. So the other thing that I mentioned, let's go on to the next topic if there are no questions. And I don't see any questions so far. Okay. So the other thing topic that I wanted to cover is the subject of using forwarding. That if I go to one of my websites, for example, this one where I have my virtual gallery, and it's gallery-934.com. Okay. Now, what if somebody puts in something else? What if they put in 934gallery.com? Where is that going to go? Because that's not the same. And notice that it comes up the same. But if you look at the URL, it's gallery-934.com. So it took me to the same place. That's using the principle or the feature of forwarding that works pretty nicely. The other is true too, that when we go here, this is the freebie that I use with free hosting service with infinityfree.com. And you can see this is the one that doesn't really roll off your tongue. Remember, I mentioned that this website, if you were to type it in as, you know, Infinity Free generated it, it would be art196 spring 2021.infinityfreeapp.com. Well, that doesn't roll off your tongue. So what I decided to do is use kmilleronline.com. So I purchased that domain name through, it's one that I had. I have several of them. There are some people that have tens, if not hundreds of them. But I purchased it through GoDaddy.com. And so if you put in infinity or kmilleronline.com and you hit return here, notice that it takes me to the same website that we had before. And in the URL, it shows up as the actual URL, not kmilleronline. So I'm using the forwarding feature. So how do you do that? I'm going to show you how I have used GoDaddy. And if I come back here, let's go back and see what I have here. So you can see that these are some of the domains that I use. There's gallery934.com. There's the 934gallery.com. There's K Miller Online. These are domain names that I have purchased. Now, a couple of them are hosted by GoDaddy. The gallery-934.com, System Core, which is one that I manage, and kmart66.com. Now, kirkmillerart.com, 934gallery.com, and kmilleronline.com, I use the forwarding service. So how does that work? Let's try the K-Miller Online to show you what happens. So again, this is through GoDaddy. So where you will find this feature will be different depending on what hosting service or what service you're using to purchase the domain names. I click right here, and if I want to manage the DNS, if I click there for K-Miller Online. So a lot of these are not easy to find. You have to really kind of grope your way around. And where it is at the very bottom down here. Notice that it's under forwarding. This is the domain. So you'll notice here under domain, it's http://art196spring2021.infinityfreeapp.com. Now, if I wanted this forwarded someplace else, all I would have to do is click on that button and put in a different URL, and it will forward it wherever you want, and then click save, and you're done, and you're set to go. As I mentioned, until you want a dedicated, serious website that you're paying for the hosting, which can start at maybe close to $100 a year and go upwards to maybe $150 a year, depending on what services that they're providing you. So it really, depends on how much money you want to spend. But in the time being, if you want to use your free website that you created for our class and use your own domain name, then that's what you would do. So you would go to, again, you can use GoDaddy, you buy the domain name. So if I were to go back to GoDaddy, the very beginning here, and sometimes it takes a little bit to find. I just want to go to, I don't want to go to that. I just want to go to GoDaddy. There we go. So if you want to search, and find the perfect domain name, then that's what you do here. So for example, if I were to put in Kmart66 and hit the return key, notice that that the one that I have is not available. It shows you all the variations that maybe you would want to choose, but it's Kmart66 online, Kmart-66.com, Kmart66 live. So these are all these other options that you could use, for advertising. It'd be Kmart66.biz, Kmart68.com. Now, in some situations, when companies get large enough, they will purchase all of these. In the event that, to avoid competition, to avoid people kind of hacking their websites. And you can see that there are some that, for example, this one, hit66.com. I don't know what the heck that one is. This one is almost $4,500. Wow. But typically, you can see here, it can be between $5, $11, $12 to actually purchase the domain name. And once you have the domain name that you want, that hasn't been taken by anybody else, then you can go ahead and you can use their forwarding service. So this is basically their homepage here, and it can take several steps, trial and error, to actually see if you can find a domain name that works for you. And then there's all the variations. Do you want .com, .org, .edu, .this, .that? And you saw all the variations that I had here. So when I did a search, but it will show you what's available, or it will provide suggestions. But if it's already been taken, you won't be able to use it because it has a unique, all of these URLs require that they have a unique address, just like where you live has a unique address. Okay. So that's using the forwarding feature. Okay. Is a kind of an alternative to actually paying for hosting until you really want something dedicated and serious, and you're willing to pay a little over $100 a year for that service. So that's all I have for today. We were able to finish all of this up in a half an hour, a little bit less. So unless there's any questions, then we will call it a day. A couple of reminders though, just to let you know that we have this Thursday, and then after this Thursday, we have next week, and next week is the last week to turn everything in. And then we are done for this semester. Okie doke. Yeah, that's it. Okay. You there? So, yeah, that's pretty much it. We are done for today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause the recording. And I'm going to say goodbye for today. This Thursday, what I'm going to cover is, and I do already have a recording on Canvas for this, is that many people or most people need to be concerned that their website is ADA compliant, meaning that it's compliant with people with disabilities. Probably the most important one is the people who are seeing impaired. Using alt tags and things like that for your images. But we'll talk about some other things too, and ways that you can test your website and make sure that it is compliant. It's very hard to get 100%, make your website 100% compliant, especially if you were in the arts, because most of it is keyed or directed to people with sight. So that will be a challenge. The easiest way to make sure that a website is 100% compliant is just to use text and nothing else. But those are kind of boring websites. But if your website is content rich, and that's what people go to your website to, to do, is to get the content. And that's what you would, maybe that's all you need. But for those of us in the arts and graphic design and fine art and photography and that sort of thing, they want to see examples of our work. Well, people who are seeing impaired can't do that. So it won't be 100% compliant for them. Okay. So unless there's anything more you want me to cover today or to review, then I'll say goodbye and we will be done for today. Okay. That's it. Okay. Bye-bye.